Audio check. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. Testing, 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 testing. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Check. Sideways. I wonder. Oh, there we go. I guess that's good enough. Like right here. I wonder. Test, test, test. All right. Well, the show must go on. I have 420, and I'm going to go ahead and get started here with this week's Q&A. And largely, in part, thanks to our friend Cerveza, sponsored by a local grocery store near you. So if you're joining us, grab your favorite libation or whatever it is you partake. 420 is for the California audience, I guess, for them to get up to speed. We'll wait here. Give it just a little bit more time. Wouldn't want to miss this. It's good stuff. I mean, who wouldn't want to watch Rooster in rush hour on their way home from work? Maybe I should share it in a story. Yeah. Just had to restart the live. Got nobody on YouTube either. Just waiting for folks. All right, well, I'll get started here. So I'll obviously record this for YouTube and update it and with some clips for you Instagram later. But if you are out there, if you are watching, thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for joining me. It's part of your busy week to come watch Rooster talk about God knows what to come. So I appreciate you being here. I will get started here with just some things here. I had a chance last night to go to some free training hosted by 511, provided by USCCA, and they're provided by Lee from Barely Training. That was providing some useful information about how to travel, largely with CCW across state lines, different jurisdictions, how to access those resources. So great training was provided for free. And, you know, if you haven't heard of USCCA and you're a USCCA or, excuse me, a concealed carry weapons permit holder, it's a great organization that helps you get covered in the event of a use of your firearm. So check them out, USCCA. They are a large organization nationwide. And part of that, anyway, I digress. Part of that is they offer free training online, or in this case was in person. So I chose to go to the in-person class, and good information. A lot of it just, you know, folks, stay vigilant, keep your head on a swivel. Situational awareness is the number one key we talked about last night. So anyway, all I'd say is let's talk about our sweepstakes. So this week we are, a week into our sweepstakes. We're giving away one free radio programmed with repeaters for your area and channels that you can use with or without a ham license. We're also giving out a free seat into intro to off-grid communications July 26th at Cargo. So that's in El Cajon. So again, one more time, one program radio with repeaters for your area, wherever you are. We got a free entry to Intro to Off-Grid Communications hosted by Cargo and El Cajon. Check them out. And this week, you're seeing it. We're giving away one of these shirts. Do you even comms, bro? That's right here. Yes, sir. You got the Rooster there calling you out, asking what your comm status is. And if you don't have an answer, you know where to go get training. I'm rocking one right now. So, free T-shirt, intro to off-grid communications, and a radio program for your area. Great value right there. All you got to do is like any of my posts, share them in your story, stay engaged, comment on any of the posts I've made from basically now until July 10th. July 11th, we'll announce the winner, and you get to get those prizes. So, excellent. Current events. Let's talk about current events before we start taking questions. But current events, and it's kind of interesting. I got Instagram up here. I'm talking to YouTube right here, so bear with me. I'll figure out how to edit all this stuff and look professional sooner than later. But I guess YouTube's right here, so I'm going to stay on YouTube right here. So current events, San Diego current events. Just a recap of some notable items that I took note this week. So San Diego marches and demonstrations, those began about a week ago today. Really kind of, well, Saturday it took place. So 7th and 8th, because the ICE agency came into South Park, which is a suburb of San Diego, and conducted a raid on Bueno Forchetta, which is owned by, I forget this name correct, Matteo Cantaneo. And no further research has been done as to why this particular organization has been targeted. Here's the Homeland Security's targeted mission for what they're doing out there. But it says ICE raids aim to identify, apprehend, and remove individuals unlawfully present in the U.S., focusing on those who may pose a risk to national security or public safety. So yeah, interesting. So not sure how owner Matteo Cantaneo connects to that. There's a lot of stuff in San Diego, as far as I'm concerned, involve networks that don't get talked about in the news. So not making any connections or speculating they're connected in some way to what Homeland Security is targeting. But it would be worth some research. Yeah. So yeah, the marches and downtown demonstrations, basically in South Park right here, uh, largely organized and coordinated through social media, and you kind of see this with the trends of the riots and the protests that we've all kind of grown familiar with since Ferguson all the way up to now. Basically the social media element to riot organizing is significant and contributes huge to the success of these demonstrations. But what I'm getting is we got apps out there that they're basically reporting ICE locations, and within minutes it's out on the network of folks who have already got this app on their phone and tracking. And then so if they're looking at social media as well, there's groups out here, SoCal Rising, Activist San Diego, or Activist SD, and PSL. We'll talk about PSL in a minute, but yeah, so they're being organized through social media and apps on folks' phone, and they're basically telling them what to bring, where to go, where to meet, all kinds of information of how to go riot at this location. Even to the point where I think this is nationwide, mind you, but some folks are reporting that there's lawyers on scene, ready, I guess the ambulance chaser type lawyers that are there ready to take a case. But with the laws in California, it's hard to argue as to why they wouldn't be there. There's no bail. Anyway, we could talk a whole hour on California district attorney issues alone, so I digress. But basically we're talking about these organized riots that are going on that throughout the nation, and it's leading us up to this weekend, like a big standoff or something, which we'll get to. But yeah, you got SoCal Uprising, Saint Activist SD, those folks that are out there coordinating, the event information. The comments is where you're going to get a lot of the instructions, and what you're seeing come out of this stuff is you're looking at TTP kind of being exposed online real time. Because how does one conduct a riot or a large scale escalatory, mob, whatever it is, peaceful, or so it's called. What else is there to do in those things? Well, they've taken it to a point where it's refined with what you can and can't do while you are there. Zones, in fact, like there's certain fees and permits and stuff. Not in this case, but there's aspects that they're exploring, working probably with local nonprofits. That we can go on in another hour episode of what nonprofits are to the community. But what we're seeing is basically a large scale organized effort. Um, and it resembles, much like what we saw with the Tesla takedown. You got, what's up? Skate Gun joined. Yo, let me give you a wave, homie. Yes, sir. Thanks for joining. So it's basically just getting into the riot stuff here that's been going on. Just to kind of recap, ICE came in last week to the suburb of San Diego, all over Southern California, but in parts of San Diego, there was a suburb targeted. One was Bueno Forchetta, which is here at South Park in San Diego, and no connection as to why the owner Mateo Cantaneo is the owner of the restaurant chain here in San Diego, why he was specifically targeted for the ICE raids. But specifically, Homeland Security aims to identify, apprehend, and remove individuals unlawfully present in the U.S., focusing on those who may pose a risk to national security or public safety. So, that's right here in our backyard. So the federal government says that whatever's going on at Mateo Cantaneo's restaurants poses a significant risk to national security. That tends to perk my ears. And if you're in San Diego or thereabouts, this is stuff we're looking at closely as to the federal response, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. So anyway, going forward as to what we're seeing already. So I was discussing how they're organized, largely through social media, but there's apps, there's been a lot of nonprofits and NGOs that are out there that were specifically funded to develop software for networking and organizing. I mean, it's not even just for the left people. It's all spectrums of the political aisle. They have it for the right. There's versions of this. So people are using social media and applications to connect the dots on where to meet. In this case, they're uploading information about ICE locations where they're at currently, and that helps the network mobilize. They call them rapid response teams here. I got them labeled rapid response teams to get on site and start leading the demonstrations. And also the support behind it, as far as not only just the logistics supply with cinder blocks and all that jazz, but I was discussing on-site lawyers or defense attorneys who are there ready to start helping the folks through the legal process, because a lot of the folks who are arrested for protesting are out that night. No bond, no bail, just out. So anyway, I digress. Going to where we're at today. I was talking about PSL. So if you haven't familiarized yourself, I can't talk. It's the Friday, but if you haven't familiarized yourself with PSL, that's the party. If I get this right, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, or PSL. So, and what's interesting about this, and I don't know if as a San Diego resident, a long time now, you guys, you hear the radio, and we're near to the border, and you kind of get a crossover, the politics that's going on south of the border in those states. So you get a little bleed over with the political campaigns and whatnot. And what's interesting to me is when you start hearing their politics south of the border, and of course I'm talking about Mexico, you hear the acronyms a lot of party names, right? So when I heard PSL, it kind of it came to my attention as something to, mark in my little Spidey Sense journal to look into later. But so PSL, if you're not familiar with them, it's just a bunch of local socialist retards. Excuse me. I did not mean to let that come out. But a bunch of folks, interested in socialism. But in any case, you saw that out there in South Park with the red shirts, clearly saying the party. And I'm interested to know if it's filed as a political party. If you know, answer in the comments below if you know of the PSL as a formal political party in California. I would suspect a large part of them are probably like Green Party crossovers and stuff like that. I wouldn't suspect AIP or anything like that, but definitely, we're talking about like the the interesting characters of society is probably checking out the PSL. Anyway, all that to say is just be careful out there. Be informed. Take a look at what's going on in your communities. There's a lot of stuff. What's going on, brother? West Coast Kinetic, what's up? I've been enjoying watching their social media as well. So, one little point before I go on. I enjoy watching all the San Diego trainers out there grow. I love seeing it. I love seeing San Diego become the bastion of marksmanship training, firearms training, all of it training. You go across the country and you look, all the guys that have to travel to Utah or out to, even like Virginia and stuff, all those courses out there. I mean, it's far. I mean, San Diego is kind of one of those areas, like we're blessed and we're lucky and privileged to have such a broad array of people out there training folks. So go get training. West Coast Kinetic Solutions is another place to go do that. So if you haven't heard of them, check them out. West Coast Kinetic Solutions. I think it's .com. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you could probably find them just by doing a Google search. Anyway, going back to the political parties of today, or maybe moving on from that. Some of the tech that came up during the riots caught my attention as well. A lot of you out there are probably watching the same live streams I was, but some of the technology that I saw out there was of note. LRADs, of course, you're seeing LRADs. So those who don't know, those are I forget the acronym absolutely correct. It's long range, something like that, acoustic device or range device. Anyway, it's an anti-mob crowd dispersing system that broadcasts this very high decibel frequency thing that just shakes your brain and rattles. You're supposed to just disperse. We had some on the ships as Navy, so we had them on our ships. Not really deployed too much down in the Fourth Fleet area, but it was still a tool we had on board. But to disperse crowds, I'm sure it's highly effective. We're seeing sort of developments there too, and how much modularity went into systems building. I think a lot of these are built by L3 Harris, so you'll probably just go to the L3 Harris website and you'll find a lot of the equipment that's out there in LA right now. But on top of that, has anybody heard of Ray Hunter or Stingray for that matter? If you haven't, check it out. I mean, this will take you down a rabbit hole of where we're at in terms of our current surveillance state. But if you look at Ray Hunter, it's a program, or it's a project rather, and I'll just show you. So it's a project. Well, first let me tell you what it is. So we have L3 Harris again. Once again stepped in to help the federal government. Beeps. Excuse me, I digress. They help the federal government develop a way to track down terrorists, and doing so using cellular technology. So you see where I'm going with this. So there's a tool out there that was the military intelligence communities, and now it's every local law enforcement agency in a neighborhood near you. Basically allows them to geolocate, map your location, use your cell phone data. A lot of you guys are kind of aware of this right now, but it's to a point now where, in San Diego, ours is called Cellhawk. So Google that. Cellhawk. That's what we use. But in any case, I say that to say that these riots have exposed something else I was interested to know, is whether these Stingray systems are detectable through the Ray Hunter program, which is if you buy these little Orbic systems that, the MIFI hotspots, you can download a program, and I'll link that in the description for the YouTube channel, and you can download very, very inexpensive $25 piece of equipment right here. You can download a software program that allows you to see if Stingray's in the area, because what that is an IMSI catcher. So you've YouTubed it, or maybe you've seen it or exposed to it before, but basically the IMSI catcher is taking your individual cell phone serial number and code to track your location and stuff like that. Used with court cases and judicial warrants and stuff like that. However, interesting if they're being used right now with all the technology in Los Angeles. Keep an eye on that out there for tomorrow, the No Kings protest. And I was going to say that the other half of that too is going back, recapping a little bit with when you were seeing the Tesla takedown protest, very similar to that, very similar organization structure. Maybe seeing that as sort of a preemptive sort of training for what's to come now, I guess, this weekend, which is the No Kings event, which is a nationwide event I think most people are aware of by now. There's like thousands and thousands of locations that there are launching this mass demonstration for, an anti-Trump protest. Here we go, Summer of Love. Hold on. So anyway, I guess what I was saying is keep an eye out for those groups out there that are sharing the information of where folks are going. So all this to say is, if this is in your area, avoid those areas. Do not go to protests. I'm telling you, it's whether it's staged, the violence is still real, so stay away, be smart. Don't do anything that puts yourself in harm. But I was going to say that these events, there's sort of the same folks too these same groups too that kind of keep recurring, and they're sort of latching onto themselves as under these different causes. Like the Free Palestine thing. Then it was the Tesla takedown thing. We got the ICE out of wherever thing. It's like it's the same group of people though, same steady group of organizers, and largely using the same apps and software. Anyway, moving on from that. The national scope, the national picture. I wanted to talk a little bit about this if you're still on with me. Thanks for joining. Happy Friday, but talking about national stuff here. So I don't know if this caught your attention the way it caught my attention, but obviously the National Guard being called up and activated under Title 10. Once the Title 10 orders come, that's kind of like when it's like, we're serious. And one of the things that was interesting to me is that, it's obviously, what's up, Stay Gold? One of the things that became interesting to me was, Trump coming right in without governor approval, right? So we're looking at this thing. What's up, Tom Hines? Thanks for joining, brother. Oh, I love you all. Thank you for joining. It's a great honor to have anybody watching and listening to what I have to say, to be honest with you, because, frankly, we're all seeing a lot of the same things, but I have maybe some unique perspective I can bring to the table that we can think about. And I can always tie it back to the class. Anyway, so going back to the national picture here. So why that caught my attention is, we have the direct federal action under Title 10, which, outlines the legal framework for the U.S. Armed Forces to do their thing, coming right into California. So, when you look at this, you always think what one side is willing to do, the other side will also have the access to do. And so, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this is a support for, ICE or anything like that, but, and by the way, where's the energy for the ATF? Where's that energy? But you see what I'm saying? I want to think about this in a logical, practical, objective way, where I'm not picking a side one way or the other. I'm just looking at it purely on the standpoint of we're making history with, once again, the Marines are once again called into LA. But always keep note of that and why and what they're able to do while they're there. Take a look at what the Title 10 orders actually say, what the use of force actually is spelled out to capture. Think back to last year, right? When we had, the big fuffle with the Department of Defense releasing instruction or a publication, I don't remember, but where intelligence communities can engage civilians. Remember to go back a little bit. Google Department of Defense can engage civilians. That goes back, I think, last year. So there's a lot of new things that are guiding policy. I'm not saying those are directly connected, but it's worth keeping an ear on these things, and it's worth keeping an eye on when the National Guard is in your backyard and what they're doing. Speaking of which, we had a sighting right on El Cajon and the 8. I think, I'm not sure if they're traveling up to support LA, but somebody said there was a Marine contingent. I don't think the 2-7 would be all the way down to San Diego, but it could have been some, holdouts for being, in San Diego, probably disembarking from a ship down here or something. Who knows? But sighting of Marines in San Diego. Not sure if they're connected to anything that's happening this weekend, or they were just traveling up to support LA efforts. Anyone's guess at this point. If you have any information on that, put that in the comments below. We'd love to know. Are Marines hanging around San Diego right now? I mean, on duty? In town? What's up, guys? Thanks for joining. I appreciate you joining me on a Friday evening. Anyway, going back to that. So the task force 51 is what the National Guard and the Title 10 orders, that's what they fall under, is Task Force 51. That's the 2-7. They're out of 29 Palms. It's a 700, or it's actually a command of 800 Marines. 700 of those people are here in Los Angeles. Yeah, it could have been. Exactly. Yeah, it could have been that, but I don't know if you have information out there, if there's any Marines hanging around San Diego, I don't know. But needless to say, things are getting spicy, guys. Things are getting spicy. Just keep your ears to the ground, head on a swivel, and if you're a concealed carry weapons permit holder, stay home probably. I don't know. I'm just, don't take my advice, but be extra vigilant out there. There's a lot of shenanigans, whether it's real or not. I mean, the violence is always still real, right? So all that to say is, the Task Force 51 under General Sherman, Scott Sherman. I don't know. Civil War's ringing a bell again. Do we have another Sherman marching through the streets of LA? Golly, here we are. No kidding. But anyway, Sherman, he leads the task force. No definitive dates as to when they secure the orders for that. But I thought the shenanigans and the tomfoolery that happened with Senator Padilla yesterday spoke for itself. It's a large circus show they're all trying to utilize for their campaigns. It is a campaign month. Keep that in mind. California has a lot of campaigns going on, and we got a midterm coming up. So this is all shaking up for midterms, isn't it? Anyway, going to the tech stuff. So that's kind of how I'll run through like current events, stuff that kind of pertains to our near term. Like this, as I kind of talked to you in class, we got the scope of our information. We got our unit / tactical level. Then we got our operational level, like our county level. And then we got our strategic / national, in this case, like broad global picture. So kind of looking at it like that, like what was interesting to me this week. Tech stuff. Let's talk about tech. I was going to bring this up too. So if you don't know, we started doing DF work with drones. Actually, it was about 6 or 7 months ago, trying to DF the actual drones flying, using the 2.4 megahertz signal, the RF signature, using the tiny SA. And it works pretty well. But here's the thing that I learned. The saturation of 2.4 gigahertz around a neighborhood is really tough because everyone's using routers. So I was picking up a lot of noise. So with this, I aim to get a little bit more of a directional, proportion to aim with the antenna system. So I'm trying to get a little bit more. So anyway, all that to say is we're out there trying to still test this stuff. So if you're interested to learn about how drones work and how radios coordinate drones, all that C2, we call it command and control. That's some of the stuff you'll learn coming out of this class. And with the alumni, they're automatic. Now we covered this last week. They're automatically entered into the mesh network on the mesh network rather. So through Gun Owners Radio, we're going to give away exclusive discounts and offers through the mesh network, and we're going to host it every Friday. Shortly, when I end the live stream, I'll open the mesh. So it's like a MeshNet check-in. So those who have already been through the class already will have the link or the mesh key to get into the mesh channel. So you're already using an encrypted channel for creating a network. So it's actually pretty cool. So you don't need a ham license for that. And in San Diego, we're pretty lucky to have a pretty robust mesh network. So I highly encourage you to look more into it, meshtastic.org if you don't know, or just come to the class. We'll show you how to set one up. But we'll open the MeshNet up here after and just do a test, hey, 1, 2, 3 tests, comms check. Can anyone hear me? And then that way everybody has a link or a buddy out there coordinated through YouTube, Instagram, and Mesh. So who out there is doing that? Anyway, fire. Okay, going on further, a little bit more tech news here before we go off. I thought the other thing that was interesting too is you see a giant push by the Department of Defense to react to the drone threat. So we got L3 Harris out there again, making what they call the Vampire. Oh, I need help on this one, but it's the Vehicle Agnostic Modular Palletized ISR Rocket Equipment. What's up? Hell yeah. I love you guys. Thank you for joining me on Friday night. I'm glad to see you here. Like I said, I got the live stream on YouTube, so I'll have that on YouTube as well, so you can get to catch up. But we're covering L3 Harris has just developed what we call a Vampire rocket system. So it's kind of cool. It's basically a rocket system you can just pallet onto a pickup truck. Thanks, brother. You do too, brother. I love seeing you in the gym. It's fucking those quads. Those quads are pretty thick. Awesome, brother. I'm on the tarmac. Oh, hell yeah. All right, well, I'm on a live stream, so call me when you get in, man. If you're in San Diego, I'll hit you up, brother. Yeah, so Vampire is basically a bunch of rockets that go out and take out the drones that are flying, like I think FPV drones with munitions or ISR drones. But it's basically the system that's an autonomous sensor that will track the drone, and then it will launch the said rocket to go intercept kinetically. And I think that's the thing to draw away here. The takeaway is less jamming and saturation of frequency and RF use for drones. Because I think we've seen the weak link there where they're using fiber optic cables now. But that's where I think the Department of Defense agreed with L3 Harris's approach to just keep things kinetic. If it ain't broke, why fix it? Just throw rockets at it. We got the billions to do that with. I think we will with the big, beautiful bill. We're going to have $1 trillion defense bill, guys. So we're going to have a lot of money for rockets. Anyway, so I thought that was cool. And it's like they have the image that Harris released shows it on a green Tacoma. So I think it was a nod to all the Overlander Tacoma nerds that are out. Sorry, I love you. Keep doing it. But yeah, so turning your Toyota into a technical, I think L3 Harris was kind of giving a nod to the folks out there. But anyway, last thing here with the stuff for tech would be the AI drone. I don't know if you guys saw this, but the autonomous AI drone beat the human in the international race. Basically, there's this large international drone race that takes place in Abu Dhabi, and the AI drone that I think the Netherlands built. Yeah, it was the Netherlands built this AI driven drone, and it was like way faster than a human. So just going to say, guys, the future is here. Prepare. Sarah Connor had it right, man. It's no fate but what we make. We're going to get smoked by AI dogs, man. But in any case, yeah, so these drones are really stepping up this year. And I don't know if you guys have noticed the impact of AI on social media or any other apps. Anybody using ChatGPT these days can tell you AI is pretty powerful already in the climate. So, or in the ecosphere, people are using it. It's out there, man. And I think, once they, like Rogan's right, when they add quantum computing, it's going to be an interesting day. But yeah, the Netherlands MOV Lab agency built the first autonomous drone to beat a human in the international, what's it called? Abu Dhabi Autonomous Racing League Championships. All right. Let's see here. I want to talk a little bit about HF, even though we don't cover a lot of HF in the class, because unfortunately, Intro to Off-Grid Communications requires, or does not require a license, where anything in the HF world generally does. So that's where kind of bridges the sort of the preliminary structure of the course that I'm kind of developing, going forward with an HF portion. So the goal would be to have more HF operators, and they're out there. There's a ton of ham operators out there already on, that are generals and above and amateur extras that are operating HFs, but that's no secret. But that's where and I don't know if you guys have the book Gorilla's Guide to the Bofang Radio, but there's a lot of jungle field expedient radio and antenna setups that are covered in that book. Whereas I think that's highly valuable when it comes to HF radio. So I want to get to a point where we have classes that are covering the HF stuff. But I mean, at that point, you're already kind of in the ham world. But it'd be interesting to develop content that gets folks in the area where they're at least listening to HF radio, which I know we do cover in our class. But anyway, all that to say is this week, big week for HFGCS. That's the high frequency global communication system that the Air Force developed. It's still in use today, and it was used this week. We got some chatter. I don't know, for folks out there, there's different aspects of this frequency where there's, we can talk about Sky King, mainsail, emergency action messages that go over this network to coordinate our nuclear triad and forces and mobilization for those forces. So that's what we got last week, at least when it came to the order to evacuate, at least for non-essential personnel from Bahrain, all those areas over there, and Qatar, or the Middle East. Basically, the Department of Defense, Homeland, or Department of State rather, I think issued the evacuation order for non-essential personnel because they think we had intelligence going forward into this week about the Israeli strikes in Iran. Nonetheless, if you were listening to 11.175 megahertz, that's HF on the high frequency global command communication system, you would have heard the main cell message that went out as they opened the net. So the takeaway from this is, all right, brother, safe flights. But the takeaway from this is the indications of warning you can get from still listening to decentralized radio equipment. HF radio is still a powerful tool that can give you fair warning, because I think that the video I have for that shows it predates by hours the social media feeds showing the strikes taking place. So HF radio could have been the very first indication we got of the Israeli strikes, and it was all through HF radio. Good intelligence right there. Nonetheless, it was a interaction between what I would say the two aircraft, rhetoric and oppression, which I think were probably, if I had to guess, would be like the B-2 Spirit bombers. I think, remember that movie with, I think it was Nicolas Cage or John Travolta. It was Broken Arrow, and they're flying, I think, the B-2 Spirit in that one. There's a lot of cool guy language in that one, and I think that rings a bell with this. But yeah, oppression and rhetoric were two aircraft chattering on the HFGCS network, and you can hear kind of how the engagement or interaction goes with authentication. We cover authentication in our class. So anyway, all I'd say is there's a lot of things you can do to keep yourself informed. Tune in to Rooster every Friday to kind of keep you updated with what I'm tracking for current events. If you have questions, leave them in the comment block below. We could talk about radio stuff, what I'm currently working on, books I'm reading. Before I leave you guys here tonight, I will tell you, maybe call this segment like the app of the week, where I give you guys an app. It's great for the tools that we're using. So in this case, we're going to talk about Scadacore, scadacore.com. If you don't know what it is, or you haven't heard of it, it's basically it's a good RF propagation tool, or a range propagation tool that you can use to see. And this is, I would say, mostly for mesh network guys out there. So if you're setting up your mesh network at home, check out the RF propagation tool on scadacore.com. That's going to give you an idea. It's a great rangefinder tool they have. It just allows you to plug in your location, and it shows you the propagation effects of that area for that particular megahertz. So I think in this case it'd be high speed, so 900 megahertz through 5G is where I think that Scadacore works, namely. So check out Scadacore. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment below. Stay engaged with the channel. Again, one more time, all you got to do is like any of the posts, share any of the posts on your stories, and then comment. Stay engaged. Do all the easy things, and you can win a free radio, this awesome Red Rooster t-shirt. I didn't even show you the back. Check out the back. Intro Off-Grid Communications, gunownersradio.com. But do you even comms, bro? Do you even comms? I'd wear that at the gym. I'm going to wear that at the gym. All right. This is Red Rooster Gorilla. Thanks for joining tonight. If you like what you hear, comment, stay engaged. Show me some love in the comments on YouTube. But yeah, 7-3, folks. I'm out. Ooh, in the stream, baby.